Yo, what's going on, guys? And today, my work, we put out the top buyout candidates for this NBA season. Link in the description. I want to hear your thoughts down below in the comment section. What do you guys think, or who do you guys think are the best available buyout candidates? So before we start today's video, I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Like and subscribe for more content like this, and go check out all the work from hoopshype.com. So, NBA fans, buckle up. The trade deadline might be over, but let's not act like the drama stops here. Oh no, the opening act of the league's annual roster change-up reality show has just gotten into its second act. And to think of the trade deadline kind of like the Black Friday of the NBA, where everybody's trying to grab shiny new toys, but guess what? When Black Friday passes and Cyber Monday ends, that's when the buyout market becomes the clearance rack of the NBA. And sometimes that's where the real steals are hiding. That's where the real deals are. So let's start off with today's first candidate. And I think the biggest thing is you can look at a team like the Dallas Mavericks, for example. They probably need a Xanax and a nap after this deadline, but hey, the party's not over. Teams can still snag free agents, waive guys, or play. Let's make a deal with leftover contracts all the way until the regular season ends. And trades, those are donezo, not able to happen anymore. So here's some tea. Some players toss around the deadline deals as human salary cap filler. Looking at you, financial considerations, but soon might get bought out. Others, they're sitting by their phones like, wait, I was supposed to be traded. Guess I'll just hit free agency. Cue the Bachelor theme song. It's time for teams to swipe right and see which suddenly available hoopers match them. And history's full of buyout market fairy tales. Remember Markieff Morris in 2020? Dude got cut by the Pistons, then a week later was dropping 19 points in the finals like it was just a regular thing. Or Boris Diaw, who went from meh in Charlotte to sipping espressos and winning rings in San Antonio. And let's not forget the 2018 bargain bin boys in Ersan Ilyasova and Marco Bellinelli, who basically turned the Sixers into a discount championship contender until they didn't. But let's keep it real. Not everyone's buyout is a Cinderella story. For every diamond in a rough, there's a guy who, well, there was a reason why they got bought out. It's rough. And think of it like ordering a mystery. Sometimes when you order from a Chinese restaurant that you've never ordered from before, you'll get gourmet sushi. Or sometimes you'll get a soggy, real rancid tasting egg roll. And still teams keep rolling the dice, and it's FOMO. Let's be real. So who's hitting this buyout market, and who's the names that we want to talk about first? And of course, we start off with the man that everybody loves. And that is, of course, the man by the name of Ben Simmons. See, Ben Simmons this year is a guy that I find rather interesting. He averaged 28.5 minutes, 7.5 points, 6.5 rebounds. 1.5 of those are offense, almost 5.5 of those are defensive, and 6 assists, 1.5 steals per game, half a block on 56% from the field, 5.5 field goals attempts, making about 3.1 of those attempts. And he only goes to the free throw line twice a game, which means basically once. And as well as, I think he's a guy who, if there was anyone, if you wanted to look at this, that would benefit from the idea of going somewhere new, playing in a competitive setting, I think Mr. Ben Simmons would be the guy that probably is the most enticing, as ongoing speculation about if he gets bought out from that $40 million deal. And Bojan Bogdanovic is yet to play this season due to injury and is unlikely to really have an impact in the standings. By the way, Atlanta Hawks are thinking about cutting Larry Nance. It seemed like they really liked him, but Atlanta sliding the standings, and their recent trades, I think, might suit them. He's really not playing for them, and like his minutes are really in or out. I just don't understand what they're trying to do there. He has played 32 minutes, 9.8 points per game, 7.5 rebounds, 2 of those being offensive, and 5.5 almost defensive, 2.5 assists, 1.5 steals, just over half a block a game, 49% from the field on 8 attempts a game, 34.5% from 3 on just under 3 attempts a game. And he's someone that if a contending team was looking for a floor spacer, I really do believe that he could be one that a lot of teams would value and could be an immediate contributor to a team looking to have a versatile, multi-positional big who can play both the 4 or the 5. So I really like that deal if somebody's looking. Next up, you have the Hornets, and the Hornets, of course, have Seth Curry and Taj Gibson. Curry shooting 45% from three, but that knee looks like it's not holding up as well as it used to. And Taj Gibson, really just a reserve guy playing 9 minutes a night. Curry's playing 16 minutes a night. Curry's shooting 3 threes a night. Gibson's basically, if you're a organization that's just looking for a reserve, I think that's where you're calling. But outside of that, yeah, I don't think anybody's really making that call looking to have anything come from there in terms of Taj Gibson. Now, moving on from there, Memphis got themselves in the deal Marvin Bagley and Johnny Davis. And I think that one where it becomes interesting because Marvin Bagley, last year he was better, but this year he struggled in the playing time in terms of consistency and efficiency. And then Johnny Davis is just not an NBA athlete who's really struggled. Johnny's played 7 minutes a night this season. Marvin's played 15. But if he can be something like he was last year before, obviously this year where he's barely playing, I mean, there's some suitability. I could also see them just holding on to him as a reserve because why not? And they wouldn't lose much. Next up, Bruce Brown, who is probably expected to get cut because he was traded to a team that is basically having a transitional gap year as they did not have a great season. I think one of the more interesting parts about this is I think it's a really good team in terms of, not team, but in terms of acquisitions. A really good team could get Bruce Brown and utilize him well. I think Bruce Brown's a solid contributor, and he got moved to the Pelicans for the Brandon Ingram deal. Same thing as Kelly Olynyk, but I think Kelly Olynyk's contract prevents the buyout. I think Bruce Brown being on 23, if he doesn't want to waste away the season on the Pelicans, then I wouldn't be surprised if he's a guy that would be able to contribute on a championship team. And to me, I think that's something to definitely think of. Daniel Tice already got released. A desperate big man team could want him. The Thunder were a desperate big man team, and they didn't care for him. So that's one to keep an eye out for. Patrick Baldwin, I had faith that he's only playing power forward or center now. They don't play him at small forward anymore. He can't play. He's too slow. Man, at this point, he still's got a decent jump shot. I mean, this year he's playing no minutes. Basically, he's a guy that it's rather interesting when you look at it because of the situation with Mr. Also, I want to say the stats I said for Ben Simmons. Why did this get mixed up on my thing? 6.3 points. What did I say for Ben Simmons? That he was averaging 7 or whatever. Yeah, I guess 6.5. But listen, I like Ben Simmons. I like that one. That's a good one when we talked earlier. But when you look at this, Patrick Baldwin going back here, he's averaged like 2 points. It's been awful. And if you looked at his stats last year, he was a guy who, in limited minutes, it wasn't like perfect, but I think it's interesting. And by the way, some of the stats that I have used here have been last year's stats because the players haven't really played this year. Like Gary Harris, I think if you give him minutes, he can be that 8-point per game scorer we saw in years past. Pat Baldwin's just terrible. I don't see him doing anything unless he becomes a 3-point shooter. I think the Spurs are the only team that are worth taking that flyer on him, and I like them. Chris Boucher, Garrett Temple, PJ Tucker. I think PJ Tucker and Chris Boucher are the most likely. It seems like they like Garrett Temple as a core guy. Outside of that, it makes sense not to keep him. But as we wrap this up, the Wizards, Malcolm Brogdon, Chris Middleton, they're saying they're keeping Chris Middleton, but that's just not going to happen and that they're cool with it. So if that's the case, I mean, I could see Malcolm Brogdon not sticking around. That makes sense. But outside of that, yeah, what are your thoughts on the buyout market?